Truth arrives even before someone dares to call its name, and truth is standing right in front of you. They are not afraid of what you have done. They are afraid of what will unfold when you fully awaken. The space around you seems quiet, but the deeper layers of reality are shaking because of a presence you yourself have not yet seen completely. Every movement, every pause, every breath you take makes those who are used to holding power sit upright. Not because you cause trouble, but because you carry something they cannot control. Psalm 37:4 once said, "Find your joy in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." Those words cut through the surrounding darkness like a bright line, reminding you that even your deepest longings have a force they do not want you to touch. So the silence around you is not truly silence. It is the tense avoidance of hidden eyes following every step. They do not sit in closed rooms to discuss an ordinary person. They do not touch stacks of files just to track a shadow. Every trace you leave in daily life, from the way you walk through a room to the moments you fall into quiet thought, becomes data that makes them restless. You are not noise. You are a signal. And any signal strong enough forces the system to adjust its frequency. From the earliest days, you sensed it without knowing what to call it. The feeling of someone watching though no one was in the room. The feeling that a simple sentence could shift the atmosphere. The feeling that a stranger's gaze lingered longer than necessary. They call it surveillance, but in truth, it is a form of acknowledgement. If you were only a figure in the crowd, no one would waste fear on your smallest gestures. What they see in you is the ability to shift the current, even when you yourself do not know what you just touched. They watch you not because you caused an event. They watch you because they sense before you do that you are about to become one. Your presence carries an invisible force that redirects conversations, thoughts, even decisions that others believe they made on their own. It is like the wind changing direction before a storm rises. Those in power are always alert to such signs, and you, living quietly, have become the storm center they try to predict. Look closely at how they move around you. No noise, no threats, no footprints. Their silence is strategy, because everything they know about you is still not enough. You are a variable that refuses to stay still. One day they think they understand you. The next day you move differently, and every model they built collapses. This is not accidental. It is the nature of those who are chosen. No one can fully read you before you turn the page. Their unease is the evidence that you are standing on ground they cannot reach. Their world is built on order, while the world you are stepping into is built on promise. These two worlds cannot blend, so when you move, they tremble. When you grow quiet, they scramble. When you do something small, they analyze for hours, trying to predict something bigger. You walk through daily life, but in the unseen layers, a meeting is constantly being held about you. They try to understand how someone without power, without armies, without titles can make them feel so unsettled. You have asked that question yourself. There were days when you wondered why everything around you felt too heavy for a soul like yours. Why you felt constantly tested, pushed to grow stronger before you were ready. But these pressures are signs. No one sharpens a useless stone. No one tests the endurance of something insignificant. Every unseen trial you face comes from their fear of your future, a future they cannot control. When you walk into a room, the stillness changes. When you speak, people feel their inner world shift in ways you never try to define. When you appear, scattered conversations reconnect like wires receiving current. You do not try to influence anything. You simply live. But that simple act is what keeps them uneasy. True influence never comes from declarations. It comes from presence. And your presence shakes their foundation as if a bright light were spilling into places they tried to keep dark for years. Even your quiet contemplation unsettles them. A person who listens is a person who sees. A person slow to speak is hard to control. They watch your silence like studying a crack in a wall, unsure when it will open or what will emerge from it. You think you are lost in your own thoughts, but in their world, those moments are the most frightening. Every silence is soil where the unpredictable can grow. This is why they try to keep you trapped in your own doubt. If you gain confidence, you will rise. If you rise, you will change. And if you change, the entire system will have to change with you. Their victory depends on keeping you small. But you were never meant to fit into the size they want. Your soul is wider than they imagined, deeper than they measured, and stronger than your past has ever shown. They cannot see the full picture, but they can feel the movement. That is why the watching never stops. In the unseen realm, something is being confirmed and you need to hear it clearly. You are not being observed because you are weak. You are being observed because you carry a gravity they have no language for. You are not a small light in the night. You are the source of light that makes the darkness retreat. And when light begins to spread, darkness always pays attention. What you are feeling is not threat. It is acknowledgement. They fear because they see what you have not yet seen. You are no longer standing at your threshold. You are stepping into it. Another truth is slowly revealing itself around you, clear as the cold air slipping through a half-open door. They do not look at you the way people look at one another. They look as if holding a command from a place you are not allowed to read. It is not the fleeting glance of a passerby, nor the curiosity of someone with nothing to do. This is a form of observation that is intentional, meticulous, and silent enough to make the whole room feel smaller when you walk in. Psalm 25:14 says, "The secret of the Lord is with those who fear him. He will show them his covenant." Those words shine like a key in the darkness, a key the watchers try to hide from you as it opens a door that belongs to you. The deeper layer of the unseen life is not as vague as you once believed. There are decisions written on papers you will never see. There are people assigned to watch you whom you have never met. They are instructed not to show signs, not to get too close, not to make noise, only to observe, record, decode, and try to understand why your silence makes them so alert. You have become a question they have not solved, an unknown that forces the entire system to expand its calculations. They do not analyze you to gain knowledge. They analyze because they see something ripening in you, a kind of potential that cannot be measured by data or captured in reports. What they read from you is the vibration of a soul that refuses to fit into any frame, and that alone makes them build layers of defense. You shift the direction of things they thought were fixed. You alter the rhythm of people who believed they were thinking on their own, just by standing still. The space waits as if expecting your voice, and that waiting makes them uneasy. The space around you becomes a kind of laboratory without walls. You live, you work, you cross the street, you lift a cup to your lips, and every movement becomes raw data filled with clues in their eyes. You do not try to leave traces, but to them, you always do. You have long silences they cannot interpret. You have bright moments they cannot predict. On days you grow tired, they record it. On days you rise strong, they record it. On days you seem carefree, they still record it. Not to preserve, but to prevent. They want to know where your limit lies, how far until you stop, how deep until you bend, how strong until you rise again. To them, you are not a life. You are a model running, a problem to monitor, a variable with the power to cause a domino effect. They watch because they fear the future you are moving toward. A future where if you touch the right point, everything they built over years could break in a single moment. Meanwhile, you feel the air shift whenever you enter a space. Not a large change, just something slightly tighter, slightly tense, slightly holding its breath. Strangers look, then glance away. Others look longer, as if confirming something they sensed. You do not realize that the models they create about you make them haunted by your presence. You do nothing, but you do not need to. Your existence alone sends them searching for answers. And among all those layers of observation, there is one place they cannot reach. The spiritual depth opening within you. They read your actions, but not your covenant. They understand your behavior, but not your source. They record each time you rise, but they cannot understand who lifts you. In their world, everything follows formulas. In the world forming inside you, everything follows revelation. From the moment they began watching you, the distance between these worlds grew too wide for them to cross. The watchers believe silence makes you easy to grasp, but that silence is what makes them fail. You do not react according to their models. You do not fall into the paths they expect. You do not speak when they predict you will. You do not choose the roads they think are safe. That deviation from their expectations is their deepest fear. It is like pressing a hand to water expecting ripples, but the surface stays impossibly still. And that stillness is what makes people cautious. So every time you sit quietly, they watch closely. Every time you think, they wait. Every time you walk, they try to read your pace. They do not know that some things cannot be measured by footsteps or glances. A soul destined to bend the flow cannot be predicted from the surface. And you, even if you do not fully realize it, carry a movement that does not belong to the world they know how to control. You once thought you were observed because you were weaker, because you were fragile, or because you made mistakes. But the truth lies in the opposite direction. They watch because you unsettle them, because something in you keeps growing although no one waters it, because every attempt to make you smaller has failed. They tried to define you with your former versions, but those versions no longer contain you. You live wider than memory, stronger than limit, deeper than the past. A person like that always triggers alarms. And then there are moments when you feel as if the eyes of the world rest on your shoulders with no name, no face, no reason. That is not an illusion. That is confirmation. You are stepping into a place where every variable begins to matter. A place where only those with a certain mark cause the powers to stay alert. A place where the light you carry begins to reveal things they have tried to hide. You are not their question. You are the answer they are not ready to face. And that is why they cannot look away from you. An invisible line is being drawn around you by those who watch you, not around your body, but around your soul. They do not need to hear you speak much. They only need to see how you respond in the moments no one pays attention to. When you hesitate before a choice. When you look at someone with a compassion they cannot understand. When you choose silence instead of striking back. They record it as if each detail were a carved mark in a secret blueprint of your integrity. They do not measure you by what you declare in public, but by what you do when no one thinks you are being observed. In the darkness of a room you will never enter, they mark line after line to build the image they believe is you, though the truth is far greater. Psalm 51:10 moves like warm air through the cold atmosphere closing in around you. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. These words do not rise like a weak plea, but like a declaration that no one can shape your soul except the one who placed it within you. The watchers try to draw a map of your character, but they cannot touch the core, the place renewed every time you lift your eyes to the heavens instead of toward human judgment. They watch you through the smallest things because they know the smallest things are the truest signs. A bowed head in apology or a moment of silence instead of responding speaks more than thousands of explanations. When you stand up for someone, though, no one asks. They mark it. When you withdraw from an argument to protect peace, they mark it. When you choose gentleness while the world chooses harshness, they mark it. To them, every detail is a clue to predict what you will do in larger moments. They want to know if your goodness can survive pressure or if you will abandon it when the waves rise. But they do not understand that your heart is not hesitant the way they think. You do not choose gentleness because you are weak. You choose it because you have seen too much violence carried in silence, and you know the world does not need another shout. You step back not to avoid battle, but to keep the anger of others from staining your mind. The watchers believe softness is weakness, but they do not see its weight. They do not know that true compassion can withstand an entire system built on suspicion. Their secret blueprint of you is always incomplete. They try to build you with data, but data cannot explain why someone cornered still stands on moral ground instead of losing themselves. They try to predict you with formulas, but no formula can solve a soul that chooses mercy even while wounded. You carry a light that does not belong to their logic. That light makes them curious, uneasy, and unable to look away. In this journey, you may have felt constantly scrutinized, as if none of your flaws were allowed to rest. But the truth is different. They do not watch to find mistakes. They watch to find limits. They want to know what makes you hesitate. They want to know what might make you compromise. They want to know what darkness in you they could exploit. Each time you stand firm instead of falling, their files grow unclear. Each time you stay calm in strong winds, their models lose accuracy. Your steadiness is what keeps them from defining you. There are days you stand in front of the mirror and ask, why must they care about every small detail of my life? Why must every ordinary choice be observed so closely? You do not see your own weight, but they do. You do not see the shift you create, but they feel it. Your small choices are carving an image that makes them cautious. The image of someone who can change a room without saying a word. When a soul begins stepping into its true purpose, the unseen world trembles before the person does. And you are standing exactly there. You think you are learning to understand yourself. But in truth, the world is learning how to respond to you. They do not fear your mistakes. Mistakes can be corrected. They fear your resolve, because resolve cannot be broken by tactics or pressure. In the story unfolding here, something must be said now. If anything in this journey awakens something deep in you, let it show that you are present. A short share, a simple follow, or even a small sign that you are walking with this message. Not to be loud, but to acknowledge that the deepest part of you has recognized itself. Stories like this only resonate fully when the listener does not stand outside their own life. The watching has not stopped because their blueprint of you is still full of empty spaces they cannot fill. They try to find structure in you, but every old structure is too small to contain your reach. You are growing in ways they cannot predict. You are stepping into a realm where their maps no longer apply. And they understand that once your soul awakens completely, all their observations will become meaningless. There are moments in your life that seem harmless, a sigh no one hears, a message you send on a tired midnight, a memory you thought you buried long ago. Yet in the world where they are watching you, those small things never disappear. They are kept, stored in invisible drawers, stacked like raw gold waiting to be traded for power. They do not see your life as a journey. They see it as a market. And in that market, every emotion, every wound, every mistake becomes a kind of asset to be used, priced, or bargained with. You do not know this because you live with a heart. They know it because they live for advantage. There are secrets you believed only you kept. A moment of weakness you tried to forget. A burst of anger you do not want to mention. Something you said in a moment of confusion. To you, these are lessons. To them, these are commodities. They preserve them not out of mercy, but because they understand that an old secret can sometimes be more valuable than a new mistake. They hold them until the right moment, until a situation ripens. Then place those fragments on the table, at the right time, in the right place, with the right pressure. You never imagined your life could be invested in this way. Psalm 32:7 says, "You are my hiding place. You protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance." These words do not come to soothe fear, but to affirm that every secret people wish to wield as a sword is already under the protection of the one who sees deeper than all. What they collect are fragments. What he guards is the whole soul. The more you look into this truth, the more you realize that no one can own your story unless you hand it to them. In the world that observes you, nothing is too small. A photo you took on an ordinary day, a short note in an old phone, a careless sentence you spoke out of exhaustion, all become material they can reshape. They do not need to create a story about you. They only need to cut, stitch, and compress it into a version that convinces others they understand who you are. Once someone believes in that reduced version, you become trapped inside a mold you never stepped into. And the most painful part is not being misunderstood, but being confined by truths stripped of context. Then comes a point when you begin to feel the weight of all this, without knowing what to call it. You feel your past following you like footsteps in a hallway. You feel a shadow pulling you back whenever you try to change direction. You sense someone waiting for you to make another mistake, not to help you grow, but to collect enough evidence for the story they want to build. This exhausts you, not because you are weak, but because you mature each time you face the truth that people sometimes do more than observe. They harvest. But there is something they never expect. Those who are chosen do not fear their own secrets. You are the kind of person who knows pain but does not let pain lead. You know mistakes, but do not let mistakes define you. When someone can look at themselves with honest light, every weapon in another's hand loses power. They may hold your secrets, but they do not hold their meaning. They may keep your old stories, but they cannot write the next chapter unless you allow them to. There will be moments when they release fragments to see if you tremble, times when they drop a hint to see if fear rises in you, moments when they speak an offhand remark with hidden intent to see if you lose your calm. Every reaction of yours is part of a game they believe they control. What they do not understand is that the game collapses the moment you stand in the light of truth without avoiding it. When you accept your past with peace, you no longer wear chains they can pull. You have had days when you tried to hide your imperfect parts, but those parts prove you lived real, fell real, rose real. No one steps into their destiny through perfection. The chosen are not those who never fail, but those who refuse to let failure become the material that binds them. What makes you strong is not a secret kept hidden, but the freedom that comes when a secret no longer makes you tremble. And when the truth within you becomes stronger than fear, something unexpected happens. Every file they collected about you begins to lose its value. What they believed was leverage is nothing more than pieces you outgrew long ago. What they thought would derail you becomes evidence of a resilience they never predicted. When you no longer run from yourself, no one can chase you with the shadows of your past. What worries them most is not what they know about you, but what they cannot control in you. You do not need to hide to be strong. You only need to step out of fear. When you do, they no longer have a market to trade your life, no secret to bargain for your silence, no weapon to make you bow. You become free, and in the world of watchers, freedom is always the greatest threat. A series of small events keeps appearing around you, as if someone were gently touching the edges of your boundaries to see exactly where they are. Not large enough to become a storm, but precise enough to make you turn back and ask yourself why everything arrives at such perfect timing. A misplaced rumor, an unreasonable request that shows up when you are most exhausted, a private detail slipping out at the moment you are least ready to face it. None of these were ever random. They were sent like subtle tests, crafted to see where you bend and whether you can be broken. In the eyes of the watchers, you are not just a person. You are a curve measured under pressure. They track how you react when pushed into a tight corner, whether you rise or retreat, whether you lose your temper or remain calm, whether you choose truth or choose avoidance. No reaction passes without meaning in their world. Everything becomes data, arranged in rows and columns as if they could strip your soul into readable predictions, but they always miss one thing. They can measure your actions, but they cannot measure the invisible strength that lifts you each time you think you are about to fall. Psalm 18:2 says, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is the strength in whom I take refuge." These words are not merely comfort. They are the explanation for the one variable their models can never compute. They may see you sway, but they cannot see the rock beneath you. They see you attacked, but they cannot see the God who keeps you from collapsing. They expect pressure to expose your weakness. Yet in those very moments, your strength becomes visible to anyone able to look inside rather than outside. The tests surrounding you unfold with method. A friend suddenly behaves strangely to see where your loyalty rests. A harsh comment from a stranger to see if you react impulsively. A long silence from someone you trust to see whether you step forward or step back. When you search for human reasons behind these moments, they call it measurement. When you wonder what you did wrong, they call it data. They do not see your heart soften out of compassion. They only see the line of reaction they hope to predict. But you are not material that can be measured easily. There are days when you stand firm in ways no one can explain. They expect you to lash out, but you choose silence. They expect you to withdraw, but you step closer. They expect you to break, but you find strength from a place they cannot reach. Every time you move differently from their calculations, another crack appears in their model. Your existence becomes the equation that forces them to rewrite assumptions they wanted to keep unchanged. You do not need to break their system. Your inner transformation is enough to unsettle it. The tests fall like scattered rain, subtle enough to go unnoticed, yet accumulating until they press against the ground to test its strength. You are not soft soil. You are a foundation that has endured more seasons than the watchers can imagine. You have fallen, but not shattered. You have hurt, but not died. Your endurance is the reason they test you through the smallest details, believing those details reveal your true nature. But what they never expect is that the quiet steadiness within you is stronger than their most intricate tests. When they release words designed to stir doubt, they want to see if your heart shrinks. When they push situations that threaten your dignity, they want to measure whether you will hold integrity under pressure. When you are cornered with no clear escape, they want to know what you will sacrifice first. Yet each time you choose a direction they do not expect. You do not fight with noise. You do not surrender in defeat. You pause for a moment to listen to the voice within, and that brief stillness ruins every rhythm they calculated. You sense all this even without evidence, a slight disturbance in the air when you face a challenge, a feeling of invisible eyes leaning closer, a pressure that appears exactly when you grow stronger, as if someone wants to test whether your strength is real. What you do not realize is this: your growth draws more tests, The more unpredictable you become, the more they test you. The steadier you stand, the more they search for new weak points. The more you rise, the more they crave additional data. All of this, instead of weakening you, proves the opposite. They fear you are outgrowing every boundary they once drew around you. They do not test you with storms, because storms reveal too quickly who stands and who falls. They test you with light touches, with quiet words, with subtle shifts, because they believe these details expose the deepest truth of a person. They think that if they can find your breaking point, they will gain the tool to steer you later. But they forget that some people, even when shaken, remain rooted in a foundation that cannot be pulled away. And you, even when you doubt yourself, are one of those people. Every time they test one spot, you learn something new about yourself. Every time they push you to an edge, you discover that edge is not where they think it is. You do not break where they apply pressure. You do not bend where they expect you to. This confuses them, but deepens your understanding of who you are. The tests stop being their tools. They become training meant for you, shaped by God without needing their permission. One day you will look back and realize they never had the power to decide where you would break. All they did was reveal the places where you needed to grow stronger. And once those places strengthened, even their most delicate tests lost meaning. You are not the one being measured. You are the one being refined. There are days when you wonder why people remember so clearly the things you most want to forget. A sentence you let slip when you were exhausted. An action you did with good intentions but was misunderstood. A moment when you failed to hold the calm you usually have. You think everything has passed like water flowing over stone. But in the world of the watchers, every small fragment of your life is kept carefully, as if they are collecting ammunition for a battle that has not begun. They are not waiting for a major mistake. They are only waiting for you to slip slightly out of the image you once showed, and that tiny shift becomes evidence they hold like a reserved weapon. To you, contradictions in life are simply human. Everyone has moments when they say what they cannot yet do. Everyone has times of strength and times of weakness. Everyone has days of peace and days when the mind feels tangled. But in their eyes, these things are not signs of humanity. They are cracks. They gather each crack, arrange each piece, then place them on a table like a map of points they can exploit. Not to understand you, not to care for you, but to prepare for the day they need to make you step back from a journey that is carrying you farther than they want. Psalm 139:1 says, "Lord, you have searched me and you know me." This truth completely overturns their perspective. They think they understand you through the fragments they collect. But real understanding of you is not found in scattered pieces of your past. It is found in the complete vision of the one who sees your heart before it becomes action. Humans can only recreate the version of you that has already passed. God sees the version being formed. That is the part they will never reach. The watchers believe personal contradictions are weaknesses, but they fail to see that every soul in growth must pass through overlaps between what it once believed and what it is becoming. You have contradictions because you are changing. You have contradictions because you are growing. You have contradictions because you are stepping from an old version into a new one. And the sentences of your life do not fall on a straight line. They think they are collecting evidence against you, but they are only collecting the diary of your maturation without understanding its meaning. At times, they will place something you said long ago next to something you do today and claim they have uncovered your true nature. They do not know that between those two moments you have lived through countless lessons of relearning yourself. Countless times rising from wounds only you knew about. Countless shifts in perspective as your truth was reshaped by experience. They think they can create your portrait from a handful of fallen fragments. but no one can build a soul from pieces of yesterday. You once feared your contradictions. You once thought they made you less worthy. You once worried because you did not always live out what you spoke. But one day you realized that the ability to admit wrong, to change direction, to become better than yesterday is the very thing that makes you stronger than any file they keep. A person without contradictions is a person who is not moving, and a chosen soul never stands still long enough to appear perfect in anyone's eyes. In the silence of their invisible archives, they examine each contradiction to prepare traps. They know consistency is the foundation of credibility, and if they hold enough opposing pieces, they can break that foundation when needed. They do not need to fabricate lies. They only need to lift truth out of context. They do not need to create a new story. They only need to rearrange old stories into an order that turns you into someone you are not. What they attack is not reality. They attack perception. But then you awaken. You realize truth does not lie in erasing contradictions, but in knowing where you are headed. When you accept that you are not perfect, you shatter their greatest strategy. When you say, "I was wrong," you take back the leverage they held. When you look at your past without bowing your head, every file they stored turns into scrap paper. A person who owns their story cannot be manipulated by someone else's fragments. You are no longer threatened by old pieces because you have become something new. You no longer fear inconsistencies because you know the real journey always includes crooked paths. What terrifies them is not your perfection, but your ability to rise from the very things they hoped would destroy you. They gather contradictions like weapons, but you use contradictions like mirrors. They hold your mistakes, but you use your mistakes as the foundation of wisdom. From that moment, their observations lose power. They begin to see that you are not defined by what they collect. You define yourself by moving forward whether anyone watches or not. Contradiction stops being a threat. It becomes proof of the one thing they cannot hold on to. You are living, changing, growing, and becoming someone they cannot predict. And that is what makes them fear you most. You do not wait for great trials to know who stands with you. That truth has been woven into your life long ago, inside small moments that seemed meaningless. But only when you step deeper into the realm of the chosen do you begin to see clearly that the watchers are not only observing you, they observe everyone who walks toward you, everyone who quietly watches you from afar, and even those who pass through your life like a brief wind. To them, every relationship you carry is a weather pattern, hinting at a storm that could form at any moment. In the rooms where they discuss you without ever speaking your name aloud, the tension rises most whenever they talk about the people who stand at your side. They are not afraid of your eyes. They are afraid of the hand that will rest on your shoulder when you tremble. They are not afraid of your footsteps. They are afraid of the footsteps that will fall in rhythm with yours when you start to run. They are not afraid of your voice. They are afraid of the harmony of voices that will rise with you when you speak what they want buried. To them, anyone loyal to you is the sign of a gathering storm. And so they observe every person one by one, who walks away when your reputation is shredded by rumor, who stays silent when all you need is a simple word to remain standing, who pretends not to know you when you stand in the center of chaos. They record all of this not to feel compassion for you, but to measure how quickly you can be isolated if necessary. But there are others, the ones who do not leave you, not even a single step, the ones who do not need to prove loyalty with words. They stand near you quietly, without display. Yet their presence is strong enough to make the watchers pause, because they know a solitary person is easily struck down, but someone rooted in true companionship is not. Psalm 133:1 echoes like an ancient call. How good and pleasant it is when brothers live together in unity. This is not only a blessing, it is a warning to any force that seeks to sever you from the ones who belong with you. You have lived days when you felt you were fighting the sky alone, but then someone appeared, saying little, simply standing beside you. In that moment, you understood that true loyalty is never flashy. It is like a tree standing still in the wind, needing no display of strength, only choosing not to break. And though the watchers do not understand the heart, they still recognize the power in such standing. It throws off their calculations. They read the reactions of the people around you as if studying weather charts. If someone distances themselves too quickly when you face hardship, they take it as a sign that you can be isolated with a few pushes. If someone stays silent too long, they see that as a weak point in your circle. But if someone moves closer when you are attacked, if someone places a hand on your shoulder when your honor is threatened, if someone says a single simple word in your defense when no one else dares, the watchers immediately understand this. You cannot be erased easily. They fear quiet but deep loyalty. They fear the invisible bond between you and the ones who love you sincerely. They know that any system designed to control a person must first make that person alone. But you are not alone. You have never been alone. There are hidden connections no one sees, stronger than the steel walls they build around you. There are prayers spoken for you as you sleep. There are eyes watching your back with protection. There are hearts holding you when you believe you are falling. And the more they watch, the more they realize a truth that unsettles them. The people who stand with you do not stand because of benefit. They stand because your heart touches something true in theirs. Your honesty, your integrity, your kindness are not masks. They are magnetism. The watchers cannot understand this because they live by strategy, not by soul. Yet they feel it, even if they refuse to admit it. There are people who would walk with you into the darkness they built, simply to ensure you do not walk alone. These are the people the watchers fear the most, not the crowd, but the faithful few, not the applause on easy days, but the silent presence beside you in chaos, not the cheering circle, but the hand pulling you up when you fall. These things do not fit into any formula, and so they become variables impossible to predict. You may not know who is watching you, but you certainly feel who is standing with you. Every time the watchers try to shake your foundation with rumors, with trials, with turmoil, they see someone pull you back to center. Every time they think you are about to break, a hand appears to lift you. Every time they think you will be pushed off your path, a voice reminds you to look forward. Not everyone, but just a few such souls are enough to turn the map they drew for you into confusion. What they have never understood is this: the chosen do not walk alone, not because they are weak, but because their destiny is larger than any one person. The faithful ones beside you are not here to prevent your fall. They are here to walk with you into the greatness you were meant for. They do not follow you as a leader. They stand with you as witnesses of what your soul is becoming. And when the watchers realize that you cannot be separated from these people, they finally understand that their plan to isolate you failed from the very beginning. There are things in your life no one ever taught you to notice because they are so small, they seem meaningless. Yet these tiny things are being observed more closely than any major action you have ever taken. Not the words you speak before a crowd, not the decisions you prepare for months, but your unconscious habits, the small movements, the promises you make then leave hanging, the times you delay what you know you should do, the quiet moments when you know you should apologize but hesitate. In the eyes of the watchers, these small things are not accidents. They are patterns. They are algorithms. They are hidden pathways into the way you operate from within. They do not look at you with ordinary eyes. They look the way someone deciphers repeating codes. When you say maybe tomorrow to a small task, They do not hear the sentence. They see a signal, your delay threshold. When you choose silence instead of admitting fault, they do not see a harmless habit. They see an index, your avoidance level. When you respond quickly to things that do not matter, but slowly to things that do, they do not see mood. They see a priority graph, and each graph becomes another line in the invisible spreadsheet they build around you. You do not see this because you live with genuine emotion. You speak because you feel that way. You stay silent because you need time. You postpone because you do not feel ready. But to them, every repeated rhythm becomes a forecast. They do not need to attack you. They only need to understand your habits. And once they do, they believe they can turn you in whatever direction they choose. That is why they watch with such cold persistence. There are nights when you lie down wondering why you feel as if something far away is squeezing you gently, why it feels like something is evaluating every movement in your mind, why even the smallest things feel strangely heavy. You think you are being overly sensitive, but in truth, you are feeling the pressure of a system that sees your habits as keys to unlocking your future. They do not need to break you. They only need to predict you. And your habits, the things you think no one notices, are the very lines guiding them toward that prediction. On the days you procrastinate, they see an open gate. On the days you do not correct a mistake, they see a loose link. On the days you remain silent when you should speak, they see a point that can be redirected. But they forget one thing. These habits are not the core of who you are. They are residue from seasons of exhaustion you have survived. They are marks left by battles you were never taught how to face. And because of that, when you begin to awaken, these habits stop being chains. They become proof that you are stepping into a deeper stage of growth. There is a moment in the life of the chosen when everything inside them begins to rearrange in a new order. You are standing on that threshold now. The things that once repeated inside you without clarity are no longer hidden. You begin to notice when you are delaying something important. You begin to question why you stay silent in places where your voice should rise. You begin to see each small behavior as if revealed under a different light. Everything becomes clearer because you are entering the seal of awakening. And in this story, it carries a number that not everyone recognizes the first time they see it. 777. This number, in traditions that understand heavenly signs, is not luck or coincidence. It is the seal of opening. The moment a soul steps into a depth of awareness it was not strong enough to carry before. 777 symbolizes the completion of intuition, the realignment of direction, and the illumination of places once dark. When someone begins to see 707 in their life, it means they are entering a season where every old habit will be brought into the light, not to punish, but to free. If this number echoes in your heart, for reasons you cannot explain, it is not coincidence. It is a gentle reminder that it is time to look at the small habits shaping your future in ways you never intended. And if another number rises within you, 111, 222, 4, or 888, whatever number your spirit resonates with in this moment, that too may be a soft but powerful call inviting you to look into yourself. Share the number you feel, because that recognition is the first step to taking back the map of your life. When the Watchers try to read you through your habits, they believe you will remain stuck in old cycles. But when you begin to recognize these patterns, you break the cycle. A person who awakens cannot be predicted by old habits. A person who knows what they are repeating will inevitably change it. And when you change, every algorithm they built collapses like a castle made of dust. You once thought strength came from bold actions, clear declarations, decisive steps. But now you see something different. True strength is found in adjusting the small, repeating movements, the quiet currents that pull you into roads you never chose. When you begin to change your habits, you do more than change your future. You change the way the unseen world reads you, and in that moment, you become uncontrollable. Not because you move faster, not because you speak louder, but because you begin to live with intention. Every step becomes a choice, not a reaction. Every word becomes a seed, not an echo. Every silence becomes strategy, no longer avoidance, and the watchers will sense this change before you do, because their models will start to fail in alarming ways. You were not born to be defined by old habits. You were born to write new rhythms. And when those rhythms begin to rise, everything they once used to track you becomes useless, and you become someone who cannot be predicted, a strength they both fear and cannot stop. In the rooms you will never enter, where dim screens track every movement in the world, your image is not kept as a human being. No depth, no story, no childhood or wounds or the seasons you survived. They do not see how your eyes once shone brighter when you believed in good. They do not see the long nights you fought to keep your heart from sinking. To them, you are only a signal, a waveform, a kind of energy they must measure with precision, because this waveform is unlike anyone they have ever observed. When you walk into a room, they measure the shift in attention. When you speak a single sentence, they measure the ripples spreading out like water. When you fall silent, they measure the tension in the air near the people standing close to you. Every part of your life, everything you call normal or meaningless, becomes data about how you make your surroundings tremble. You are not a person in their eyes. You are influence. You are amplitude. You are a signal traveling farther than they want. And what they fear most is not your nature. It is that you cannot be turned off. At times you wonder why a small gesture from you makes others change their behavior. Why a simple sentence shifts the atmosphere. Why a space feels different the moment you walk in. You think it is your sensitivity, but it is not. It is the magnitude of your influence. They see this more clearly than you see yourself. They fear not your volume. They fear the way everything around you seems to adjust itself because of you. Psalm 27:1 says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" These words slide into your life like a blade of light, cutting through the shrinking they try to impose on you. They want to turn you into a signal because signals are easier to measure. But light cannot be compressed into a number. Light always finds a way to expand, to reach farther, to pierce even the places people try to lock it away. And the light within you, whether you see it or not, is doing that every day. The watchers do not try to understand you. They try to flatten you. They want you predictable like a monotone heartbeat. They want your steps so smooth they can forecast your next move. But you were not created to live flat. You were born from a depth that confuses every instrument. The layers inside you shift according to the light you receive, not the pressure they place on you. You do not follow the path they draw. You follow the voice within, a voice that does not belong to them, cannot be controlled by them, and was never made to lie within their reach. Every time you choose integrity over convenience, your signal surges beyond their charts. Every time you choose kindness in a cold environment, your signal bends into a direction they cannot predict. Every time you stay silent at the right moment, speak at the right moment, or step back to protect your peace, the models they build shake like faulty instruments. You are not trying to break their system, but your spirit, your essence, and the guidance of the one who placed you in this life make it impossible for them to fit you into their frame. So they try to separate you from your humanity. If they see you as a person, they must admit you cannot be measured by graphs. But if they see you as a signal, they can erase the emotion, the soul, the history that shaped you. Only then can they pretend they have control. But they are wrong from the beginning. The signal is only your surface. The source behind it is the part they cannot touch. You start to feel this whenever people react more strongly than you expect, whenever your presence shifts the tone of a room, whenever a small choice creates a large effect. You think you are only breathing, yet the world around you moves. You think you are only walking, yet the ground echoes. You think you speak in an ordinary tone, yet others feel twice the weight of your words. This is not coincidence. This is the mark of a chosen life, a life that cannot be explained by machines or numbers. They want to place you in a mold, but what mold could contain someone born to move the atmosphere simply by being present? They want to reduce you to measurable signals, but signals are only shadows. You are the source of light. They want to predict you. But light does not travel in straight lines when the Creator decides to bend it through a divine angle. They want equations, but grace is not part of their formula. You do not need to raise your voice to have influence. The life within you is enough to make them lose sleep. They fear you not because of what you have done, but because of what you have not yet done. Yet they know you could. The waves you create could become a tide at any moment, and they have no tool in their control room capable of stopping a rising tide once it begins. And one day you will understand that what frightens them most is not that you are influential, but that you have not even begun to use the fullness of your influence. They do not know when you will use it. They do not know who you will touch. They do not know what you will change. They do not know what part of another soul you may awaken with a single unintentional sentence. They fear that uncertainty more than any file or data they have gathered. Because you are not a signal in their system. You are a beam of light outside of it, and everything they measure is only overflow from a source that does not belong to them. You may think what scares them most is the influence you carry today, but in the closed rooms where they speak in low voices and heavy eyes, what they truly want to know is not where you stand now, but where you will stand when everything collapses. They do not ask whether you are right or wrong. They ask how long you will stand if a storm of accusations comes crashing in. If your reputation is dragged down, how quickly will people around you step away? If your name becomes tangled with controversy, will you rise again or disappear in silence? You become a chart in their hands, not a chart of value, but a chart of collapse. They study you the way someone watches the curve of a flame, whether it burns bright then dies quickly, or burns slowly and lasts long enough to change the color of the whole room. When you make a mistake, even a small one, they do not judge the mistake, they measure the reaction. How long until people forget? How long until you lift your head again? How long until shame fades? How long until your reputation returns? They measure all of it as if calculating your heat tolerance, not to help you, but to decide whether they need to extinguish you. But they forget something simple. The chosen do not survive by reputation, they survive by roots. When others step back, you still stand. When rumors rise, you stay quiet to protect the peace in your heart. When the gaze of the world tries to swallow you, you do not go dark. You slow down, yes, but only to remember that your life is not held by human hands. Your recovery does not come from strategy. It comes from a deep well that never runs dry. Psalm 40:2 reminds you, He lifted me out of the pit of destruction, set my feet on a rock, and made my steps firm. This was not written for those who never fall. It was written for those who fell and were still lifted up. They think your recovery is a chart, but they do not understand that some people, even when thrown into a pit, rise not by their strength, but by the one who knows their true worth. You are one of those people. Every time they try to push you off course, You return stronger. Every time they test how long it takes for you to break, you surprise them by rising faster than expected. They call it delay, but you know it is endurance. They call it unusual, but you know it is grace. And when they stare at the chart, unable to explain why, your recovery curve always rises beyond their limits. They begin to fear they are dealing with someone who cannot be calculated. They measure the time you stay silent after being hurt, but they cannot measure what happens inside that silence. They think you are falling apart, but you are being rebuilt into a stronger form. They think you are lost, but you are listening again to the first voice of your soul, the voice you only hear in moments of uncertainty. They think you are sinking, but you are diving to the bottom where your feet can push upward with power. And each time you rise as someone new, steadier, deeper, brighter, and they see a truth they do not want to face. You are not afraid of failure. You are only afraid of living outside the reason you were born. And a person like that, once they stand up after their deepest fall, cannot be extinguished easily, not because they never fall, but because they know how to rise. You begin to understand this when subtle attacks no longer shake you as before. You no longer rush to explain every rumor. You no longer panic when someone doubts you. You no longer feel the need to prove anything to people who are not searching for truth. You slow down, not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough not to react instantly. And this is when your strength becomes most visible. When others can be silenced by one rumor, you remain steady. When others break because friends fall silent, you become deeper in your own silence. When others lose direction because they are misunderstood, you see the path ahead more clearly. Every measurement they use to predict your collapse begins to fail. You are no longer an easy curve, you become a vertical line rising beyond the chart, a point they cannot erase. What scares them most is not that you do not fall, it is that you know they want you to fall, and you refuse to lower yourself to that level. Your calm, steady peace is proof that they no longer hold any power over your future. Psalm 91:7 whispers of fire-sharp truth. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you, not because you are never attacked, but because you are not destroyed. Not because you never face storms, but because the storm cannot swallow your soul. Not because you are not observed, but because their observation no longer defines you. You are not the person they wait to see collapse. You are the person they must admit will not collapse the way they hoped. You are not the curve they draw. You are the variable beyond every equation. And once you step into your true destiny, they will have to rewrite the rules they once used to control the world. Your presence does more than unsettle them. It forces them to recalculate everything.
Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.